Yo, what up, what up, what up? Happy Wednesday to everybody. We are hopefully going to be joined by our two other folks for the Menswear Mastermind. Um, if they make it. But please make sure that you leave your questions in the chat and we'll answer them. And we'll get started from there. Let me double check something. Some issue with my Instagram. Just wanted to check this. One sec. All right, so anywho, sorry having some technical difficulties on Instagram. So if you are talking on Instagram, I'm try to see if I can get back in, but may not be okay. There we go. Bam. So if everybody has questions, make sure that you put them in the chat. Please don't wait till the last minute, like we have kind of created the practice recently of asking the questions last minute so that I can make sure everybody's questions get answered. Or if when we have our other fellows on, we can make sure that those questions get answered. Um, how's everybody's summer starting or spring? We're still at the end of spring. Let me know if you have any summer or spring, end of spring style tips. Today I got a little dressed up. Felt like being polished and well put together. And I made some acquisitions. So I don't know about you guys, but a lot of guys, even myself, we don't think about the maintenance costs of like replacing items. A lot of times, it's something that I think a lot of stylish guys are aware of, but they don't really think through. And so for me, whether it's weight change, whether it is lack of utility anymore, or they've just been worn out. You don't think about those replacement things a lot of times. So this year, I've committed to making sure that I start budgeting with putting some money aside for the re-up, right? So for me, I had uh, I've gained some weight, losing some weight, but gained some weight as I gotten older, and so I've also gotten to the place where I don't really want a whole lot of stuff that's overly fitted, overly tailored. I know that we're moving back away from the the overly tailored style, but I won't be jumping back into the overly tailored once that swings back into that frame. It just doesn't work for my body type. It doesn't work for my comfort, and that's an important thing for a lot of guys to always pay attention to is what works for your body type. I recently saw a Instagram post from a guy named Two Buttons who I respect a lot. I think he has some great points. I think he's also a lawyer. But he was talking about like how guys shouldn't pay attention to their body shape, that nobody has, these shapes that they're talking about. And respectfully, I wanted to push back a little bit about that because, and we're going to get to while I'm talking about this and the maintenance and what became of that. But a lot of guys, he was saying that guys should just dress, how they want. And I realized that a lot of us as a society have gotten into this just do what you want, do what thou willst, right? But somebody else also said that if you know, you know, if you're not, if you don't, I'm not gonna make that a moral conversation. But um we have structure so that we can have guidance, we can have development, we can have refinement, sophistication. And so his whole thing was, you don't have to follow these rules essentially. And I still follow the same perspective that my mentor, Alan Fluster, used to say. He was like, yo, you have to know these rules, you have to know these tenets, these precepts, you have to know these foundational principles in order for you to break them, bend them, manipulate them, right? You have to know that there's a matrix so that you can then manipulate the matrix, right? You have to know that you're in the matrix before you can manipulate it. And so, um, one of the things that I started peeping was like understanding your shape. So I have a full seat. I have fuller thighs, an affliction many melanated fellas deal with. And so for me, a fuller trouser, roughly about an 18 and a half, maybe 19-inch bottom, does on the hem does work best for me. Pause. Right. And so I um I started to do a fuller leg. So this is where, ask Ogie. He may have gotten it right here. Not for everybody, but he definitely got it right on that. The pant opening, and making sure that you have enough room for movement. And then that also leads to a longer rise. I can wear my pants at higher than the natural waist because I like wearing mine slightly higher than the natural waist. But with all that being said, a lot of items no longer were serving me. They no longer were working for me. So I'm getting rid of a lot of items because I need to re up. And so I'm moving at a slower pace, re-upping and getting, these new items because I want to be strategic. Now that I'm in my 40s, I don't want to waste money. Key, what's going on, bro? Sorry, I've been gone for the last 2 weeks. Um, had some family stuff going on, so it's good to be back as well. And by all means, like I said, ask your questions. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, we got like 10, maybe 15 more minutes, and we'll move on to our Menswear Mastermind community, which you can join. It's easy. Um, all you have to do is go to patreon.com/, Menswear Mastermind and sign up. $47 a month, which gets you three perspectives, not only mine, but you have Style Jumper as well as Vlad Demir Roche. I don't know where they are, but they will most likely be on the call. But you get three perspectives. You get a casual perspective, you get a classic perspective, and then you also get the custom perspective. So three different dynamics that are all going to have a deeper dive on style. So, my man Key says thoughts on one piece collar. I've seen a lot of makers focusing on these. Also, any thoughts on poly blend fabrics? So, and then if I need to, I'll get back to the story. If not, we'll start with the questions. So, one piece collars are great because of the way that they sit inside of a jacket, especially if they're qualitative one piece collars or they sit higher. So a lot of the one piece collars that I've liked have a higher band height, and so they roll down almost as if they were a button down collar in a jacket. I would tell you to make sure that you invest in quality if you're going to do a one piece collar, because I've seen it done wrong a lot more than I've seen it done right. So if you're gonna get into it, don't play with it. Pause. Make sure that you are getting something that is going to really be a qualitative piece, right? Make an investment, find a great factory, or find a great house, or find a great company, and make sure that they're doing those. And it doesn't have to be overly expensive. It just needs to make sure you just need to make sure that it's qualitative. So like Vladimir Shea has a connection right now with Proper Cloth. I know that they were doing a one piece collar. If they still are, I've heard really good things about Proper Cloth. I have not tried them, so take that with a grain of salt, but I've heard good things. As far as the thoughts on poly blends, it depends on what it is. We've been moving in the space of having some tech, what we would call tech fabrics for some of our casual jackets, some of our much more leisure, which is where I would go beyond like business casual, is the leisure space, jackets. So some of our blazers that are leisure, kick around, or travel, we've had some poly blends. Outside of that, I probably wouldn't leverage those. I'm not a fan of like poly blends in pants, not a fan of poly blends in shirts or any of those synthetics in shorts, or shirts. The pants, just because it always looks like you're probably going out for golf afterwards. And if you're handling business, it's not a good look. And so therefore it limits the versatility that you can utilize. But if you like it, I'm not gonna tell you not to do it. It's just not something that I would utilize. And for shirts, I just don't like the I don't like the feeling. It feels too comfortable. Like every guy who's gotten those tech fabric shirts or the stretchy shirts, they're always like, man, these are the most comfortable shirts that I've ever gotten. I think I've seen like three collars or three ways that it's been done well with a very specific type of blended fabric. There's only been like two fabrics, so I just never really been a fan of it. Were they comfortable? I guess in a way that like sweats would be. But I think that they, again, it kind of comes back to the story that I started with, you know, that we have forgotten the the beauty of a slight discomfort. Right? When you throw on a suit, I don't care how often you wear a suit. And I used to say this quote that, when you're wearing a suit, it should feel like sweats, and it should, right? Because we got there. We got to a space where we could throw on a jacket and it was in a sweatsuit material, in athleisure material. And I started realizing like I was wrong, right? I'm not God. I can be wrong. And I was completely wrong with that. I think that a suit should feel a little elevated. Even if it's a casual suit, it should feel elevated. It should feel um like it is doing something different, like, right, like you're setting yourself apart. And it's amazing that even if you're the guy who says, I'm going to throw on a navy blue blazer, and then I'm going to have a pair of drawstring trousers that's going to match, right? I bought separates, but they essentially are a suit, and I'm going to throw that on with the t-shirt. When you button that jacket, if it's tailored properly, you don't know that you have a drawstring on, right? You could have on a t-shirt, you could have on sneakers, and there could be a casual element to it, but it doesn't really express that because suits elevate. That doesn't mean that they create outcasts, right? You don't want to be in a situation where you're totally removed from the spaces that you're in, but it does elevate spaces. And so I would tell you to invest in natural fibers, and once you covered that space to your fill, then you can move towards some synthetic in a way that like really would make sense. If you're traveling a lot, if you're on a plane, there is benefit, there's merit in you putting on a tech piece, especially if you're in the tech space, um if you're in the very business casual space or the creative spaces, if you're a in a ideation type of space, then you can leverage all those different components, especially with tech fabric. I've had guys who are like, yo, I have to take a red eye from LA to be at a meeting in Charlotte, for a pitch or for business or what have you, sales, what have you, and they throw on those tech fabrics, and it works perfectly fine. I've had similar clients who are flying to New York, and it's a totally different game, right? They show up to a spot on Fifth Avenue, or on 23rd, or in Flatiron, or downtown Manhattan, and they're running in like that. It's never going to sell the same. You still may pass, but it's not going to feel the same when you're working with somebody like that. So I'm always a big fan of that, of just knowing where you're going to show up to. So context matters. Great questions. And so this is kind of like, this ties back into the upkeep and maintenance. A lot of guys don't want to spend money on maintenance. A lot of guys don't want to invest in the upkeep of taking stuff to the dry cleaners, properly having a dry cleaner, going to a reputable dry cleaner. So all those things are important. He said, last question, summer related thoughts on Fox Air, Crisp Air, Seems like worthwhile fabric to have a suit jacket or trousers made, especially for a Florida summer. Um, Fox Air. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not super familiar with Fox Air, but I am familiar with Crisp Air, which is Holland and Sherry. Yeah, it's an open weave. It breathes exceptionally well. It is has some cool colors. But it can be pricey, just depending on how you're going with that. So if you have the budget and you can afford to have some fun with it, great. If you can't, it's definitely good to make a qualitative investment that you'll know you'll some return on. Um, but Fox Air, I'll have to do some research on. You put me on something. I'm always happy to learn something new. But Crisp Air, I definitely know is a very dry fabric. It breathes extremely well. And also, I think a lot of guys need to remember too, when you think about a suit or you think about a jacket, consider how that's being constructed, because you could have crisp air, you could have hop sack, you could have mesh, you could have all these other fabrics that are going to be perfect for the summer, and then you do a full canvas. And so now you have something that is impeding the ventilation of a jacket that was meant to be cool, and you wonder why it still feels warm or still feels hot or feels heavy or any of those different types of things. So just make sure that you're bearing that in mind when you're thinking through those things as well. Something that a lot of guys don't think about because they don't know to think about. So I'm just putting that out there for you. So there, and my pleasure, bro. It is 8:25, so I'm going to hop off and we're going to get ready for the Menswear Mastermind. Sorry that the other two fellas could not um, enjoy. I had to double check to make sure it was Wednesday. But uh, again, this is why you can join the Menswear Mastermind. Even if there is one person, you're going to get a higher level of perspective, expertise when it comes to your personal style. And while we may have different aims, we still are all going the same direction, and that is to help improve men's personal style and their personal expression. So if you are interested, like I said, you can go to patreon.com/menswear mastermind and join us. $47 a month. There's no obligation for you to stay a long time, but if you do want to save some money, then you can join us for the annual, and it's 470, so you save 2 months as well. So if you're interested, make sure that you join us, and if not, we'll see you next week. All right, peace.